to Ordinary People podcast, where we talk to ordinary people with extraordinary stories. I'm your host, Alan the Great, and I'm here with a special guest. This man has battled addiction, overcame it, and is now saving lives one step at a time. This is a very important guest, a man I've known for a long time and played a very, very important role in my life and success. I'm proud to introduce this extraordinary person, Mr. Andre Wright. I'm sorry, Mr. Andre Ryder. I'm sorry. Started off right? Mr. Andre Ryder, how you doing, Mr. Ryder?
I'm good.
All right, man. We're going to have to start this off. We're going to, of course, get into your life. You know what I mean? How did you battle addiction and that sort of thing, and how did you recover from this and become this extraordinary person you are today? But I think it's important with the climate that we're living in right now and all that's going on in the world that we started off with some current events. And the first question I wanted to ask you about is this the issue with the police and killing black people. I wanted your perspective on what is your feeling on all the shootings, with 2 shootings in the last 48 hours, one in Minnesota, and I think was it one in Indiana, or I'm not sure where the second shooting was. But what is your perspective on all these shootings between officers and black young men?
First of all, black lives does matter.
Right.
I think the plight of our country with the police officers and African American men, first of all, we're pretty much misunderstood all over this country. I can say this, that violence against us black men, we can't use violence to try to solve the situation. We just got to maybe handle the situation a little better. If they ask us to put our hands up, show us our hands or whatever, we should remain calm and do just that, man, because it seems to me that any other thing you do besides what they ask you to do, that's when they want to use their want to be more forceful with us.
Right.
You know?
What do you think could be done differently, like with the police force, to stop all these unnecessary killings? My personal opinion is just more training. You know, a police officer should be more trained to de-escalate the situation rather than escalate it. I'm not saying that's always the case, but with all these shootings, I feel like there could be more done to de-escalate the situation. What is your perspective on what they could do differently to change this?
Well, my perspective, first of all, is that we're human, period. It's funny that you asked me that question, because just last night I was looking at some stuff on Facebook. The difference between how police officers, and particularly white police officers, handle white people. And it's amazing how they could use and try to do everything but actual force by shooting the individual. They just, they handle us so much differently.
Right.
And I think, first of all, it's because they are simply threatened by African American males.
I agree. I think what this world and human beings are known for is destroy what you don't understand or what you can't conquer, and I feel like that's definitely in play here with racism. Is you destroy what you don't understand or what you can't conquer. You have sons, of course. What do you say to your sons on a day after you see 2 young black males die within 24 hours and countless of black males are dying by the hands of the people who are paid to protect us? What do you say to them when they go out the house, and how do you prepare them to stay safe and not end up on the news as another casualty?
First of all, I try to let my sons know that they have to pretty much think about themselves first. Do not be a follower. Be a leader. If you do get in a situation and the police officers are on the scene or whatever, just do as you're told. Remain calm. Because first of all, if you didn't do anything, ain't no need of you acting out. Because that's going to make you look like you're guilty. So just remain calm. Be yourself. And just if a police officer asks you to put your hands up or whatever, you do just that. You can still use your cell phone to record it. I would suggest that to them as well.
Now, with one of the questions I used to argue against was people used to say to me when Trayvon Martin died or when Michael Brown died was, how can you say Black Lives Matter when you got people in our community killing each other? For instance, where we're recording this from, we're of course in Delaware, and in Wilmington, Delaware, they calling it Murder Town, USA, where every time you look on the news, the local news, you're hearing about another casualty, another young black male shot by another black male killed by another black male. How do you feel about the outrage of police killing black males, but it being not so much of an outcry for us killing each other?
Well, for us, I mean, that's a good point. I care about that deeply, very deeply. I just think that a lot of our young people today do not know their history, do not know the fact that there were people before us that fought for our rights. And I mean, of course, they may know Dr. Martin Luther King, but it was so many more people that died just so that we could have the rights that we have today. And these young people today just do not know that. And I'm not talking about somebody like Michael Jordan or someone like that. I'm talking about an actual, and I'm not talking about someone like Malcolm X. I just don't think they really understand. They don't understand finances. No one is teaching them how to be men. And nowadays, no one's teaching the young ladies how to be young ladies, man. I mean, they out here fighting just as hard as the guys are nowadays. So it's just a terrible, terrible situation, man. And that's a good point of you bringing that up, man.
You like we said, we started this off. You dealing with the addiction. You out in the community. You helping with helping with saving lives as far as with drug addiction. And from a person who comes from that background, you kind of have a pulse on what's going on in these inner cities with the poverty and with the violence and stuff. Not saying that you're in the mix, but just being there as a person who's trying to make a change in that community. And I think it's a good way to, I guess, segue into sort of your life. Now, you're a much older man in your 50s, gracefully matured and look amazing in your older age, meaning you took care of yourself, even dealing with the drug issues you dealt early in your age. Looking at you, you won't be able to tell that, just by how you carry yourself. Very humble man. Like I said, I've known you for years. Very family oriented. Let's go into some of your history. I know you played for Newark High School basketball team. You're very prideful of that. Me personally going to Christiana High School.
That was like 30-something years ago.
So, I mean, let's talk about that. You grew up in the Southbridge area of Wilmington, Delaware, correct? That's your stomping grounds.
Grew up in Southbridge. I went to Newark High School in Southbridge. That's pretty much when I basically started experimenting with drugs, like at the age of 13 or 14. I can remember being on a school bus in middle school, popping Black Beauties.
What's Black Beauties for people who don't understand?
A kind of a speed pill.
Okay.
I can remember doing that. Of course, I smoked weed around that time. In middle school, I smoked weed. And that carried on into high school. I started experimenting with cocaine in my 20s, maybe about 21, 22 years old. I started experimenting with cocaine, sniffing it, of course. And from there, I started smoking coke. And I'd done that, man, for almost 20-something years.
Right.
And in that itself really changed my life, man. I mean, I lost a lot of things from sniffing cocaine and smoking cocaine. And from there, I picked up heroin at the age of 40. And that's pretty much when things were already spiraling downhill. But at the age of 40, me picking up heroin, things really got out of control. Lost a job, a very good job. I worked there for pretty much 17 years at a refinery. And I lost that because of my heroin use. Um, so now I've been cleaned for like 6 years now.
Wow, amazing.
Didn't get a dirty urine. Didn't get a dirty urine in 6 years, man. But prior to that, I can remember me getting 15 dirty urines before I actually decided to get myself together. And they would get ready to kick me off of the clinic that I attend.
Right.
And the very day they were getting ready to kick me off, I remembered that I was offered IOP, which is intensive outpatient treatment.
Right.
So I started that, and I haven't looked back, man, ever since, man. I now work for Brandywine Counseling. Like you were saying earlier, I'm out there doing outreach and actually seeing what drug addiction is actually doing to our communities here in Wilmington, Delaware. I'm a Narcan trainer. I work on a syringe exchange truck. So me having that experience and me dealing with my own addiction, it's some things that I could pass on to these young people and even some older people that are still living that life. Some skills to try to help them recover from drug addiction.
Right. Like I said, you played an instrumental part in my life and my success as well. Not that I ever dabbled in drugs, but just teaching me about the importance of owning my own home, the importance of knowing about finances, the importance of being a father, being a family member, you know what I'm saying, being a man to my home, and the importance of taking care of your home. So like I said, you're a person that I have high respect for and high regards for. Couldn't say a bad thing about you. You're definitely a family man, and you're a man that take care of his family. You take care of your wife, you're there for her, you're a father to your children. And how was it growing up without a father? Like, how did that play a part into you? Because at one point you actually were a single father of 3 daughters, right?
Correct.
How did that play a part? Like, not growing up in a poverty situation, dealing with drug addiction, and not having a father.
Well, I always had, my stepfather was there.
Okay.
But our interests wasn't the same.
Okay.
He was into motorcycles, things of that nature. I was into playing basketball, football, baseball, those sorts of things. But he was there, and my real father was not. I can't say one bad word about that man. Henry Nichols, man, he took care of us, man. And still to the day, man, he treats me just like I'm his real son. Now, not having my father there, it was one of the things I always thought about was when I start having children, I wanted to be a better father to them than my father was to me. Never disrespected my father in no way,
Right.
No way, no kind of way. I love him to life, although he's gone now. But it was really important to me to be a better father to my children. And I can't say that, I could say I done just that, but I fell short in some areas too, of course.
Right.
About my drug addiction.
Well, we all do, and that's a thing that I think we all, as people, do. And I always say to people, no one remembers the fall. They remember you getting up. And where I say that is, you think about for people who have iPhones or have iPads or iPods, you don't remember that at one point Apple failed. Steve Jobs, the creator of all these great things that we use and gadgets, was kicked out of the company early on, and the company almost failed before bringing him back in. And when they brought him back in, they became this giant of what they are now. So even within failure, it's not about what failure. Now, if you mention Steve Jobs to people, the first thing people would say is, this is the guy who gave us the evolution of the iPhone, the iPad, iTunes, and created all the iTV, just things that change our lives in so many ways. What you don't hear them say is, Steve Jobs and Apple almost failed at delivering us even computers, deliver us the devices they started early on. So what I say to you is the same thing I say to everybody else. Without failure, you can never reach success. And I think what you have proven, and that's why you're such an extraordinary person, you never you never tried to downplay your failures, but you also never made your failures your crutch. You acknowledge your failures while still picking yourself up, dusting yourself off, and keep fighting the good old fight and keep striving for greatness. And you have three amazing daughters that I know very well who are also enjoying success in their lives and doing very well as your son. And I think that speaks highly of the person you are and overcoming the things, you know, growing up without a father and having a stepfather, even though you guys' interests weren't the same, and still not harvesting hate in your heart for your original father. I think it speaks volumes of the person you are and the person you have been able to become, and the growth in yourself and how much you can actually offer to the world. And that's one of the reasons why I felt it was so important to get you on this podcast, because the purpose of this podcast is to talk to people with these extraordinary stories, and you represent the extraordinary stories that we want to talk about.
Can I don't mean to cut you off.
Sure. No.
I just want to say this, you know, it was because of my mother.
Mm-hmm.
It was the upbringing that I had with, you know, my mother bringing me up. My mom done everything for us, man. And I truly wanted to be drug-free, a good father. I wanted my mother to see all these things before she left me.
Right.
You know, before she moved on. You know?
Right.
It was just really important to me to make sure that my children as well didn't see me in my 50s still struggling with drug addiction. They're all very proud of me. You know, I'm so happy, man, to be drug free. It's kind of like really hard to explain, but it is a journey, man. Nothing comes easy. You abuse your body with these drugs over a certain amount of years, and the recovery process is not overnight. It's 1 day at a time. Excuse me. It's 1 minute at a time. 1 day at a time. You only have to stay clean just for a day. And if you live by that type of motto, you can be successful.
Wow. Now, before we get into how you actually came to grips with battling the addiction and actually ultimately conquering it and deciding to stop using drugs, let's talk about what was it peer pressure that got you hooked onto drugs, or what introduced you to drugs, and what made you interested? Was it just seeing it around? What was it that made you want to try that first drug?
I can tell you this. I'm almost certain that no one who indulges in drugs decided that they wanted to be a drug addict or suffer from some form of addiction. Nobody. You know, I could say peer pressure had a hand in it, but you certainly can't blame it all on peer pressure. For me, when I started using, man, I just liked it, man. I just liked it, you know. And a lot of people are blaming it on their parents, and you know, and some of that is true because some of it can be hereditary. But for me, I just enjoyed getting high, man, and I did not understand the physical part of it, especially with heroin. You know, one day you got 4 or 5 bags of it being passed around, and the next 2-3 days, even in a week's time, you could be hooked. You know, you're sick, and you wonder why you feel the way you do, you know. But I just enjoy getting high. That's it. You know.
The spike in drug addiction now, and of course, once again, you could speak more to this than I can. The prescription pills and the abuse of prescription pills, the opiates that people are taking now. It feels like the crack era all over again. Would you agree that this feels like the 80s all over again when crack hit the streets and like it hit us like a plague? It kind of feels like that way with the pills and the young people and how it's taking over young people. I remember riding through the city recently, and I said to the person in the passenger seat, it looked like zombies walking around here. With you being out there and you fighting against this, is this a new war on drugs with the pills?
Well, Percocets oxycodones, Vicodin, Tramadol 3. All of these pills are nothing but synthetic heroin, first of all. I know of people that have been in horrific car accidents, and first of all, you gotta understand the drug company's only trying to sell
Right.
their pills.
Yeah.
You know, they the biggest drug dealers of them all.
Absolutely.
You know, the physicians, you know, of course, to me, are the biggest drug dealers of them all. You know, because they give these people these pills, and without really clear instruction on how to use these pills and what can actually happen. You know, they are a synthetic form of heroin. They are opiates. And these people begin to take these pills and get addicted to them, you know, from just abusing them.
Right. It's interesting because like people are stealing them, and it's the measures they're going to represents once again crack in the 80s. Like, you know, you're leaving your kids out. You know what I mean? Your kids starving. You're breaking in cars. You're stealing
That's
the pills
addiction.
from family that might have had surgery or something. And the extraordinary measures you're going through the pills, as a person that suffer from the disease, I guess you could put it, of addiction. Can you take us through the mind of a drug addict for people who are not drug addicts like myself that has no idea about what's the mindset of a person that's on drugs? Can you take us through the mental state, if possible, of what they're going through?
Well, if you're talking about heroin, if you're talking about Percocets or Vicodin or something like that, Tramadols, the one thing a person absolutely do not want, is to be sick the very next day.
What do you mean by sick? Can you break down what sick means?
Well, some people, forgive me, some people may defecate on themselves.
Okay.
Sweating, lethargic. You have this feeling of being tired. Your bones even ache. You know, and that's from the opiates. Now you have people that also are mixing benzos, like a Xanax pill, and the opiates together, which is not a very good combination, man, because just off the opiates yourself, you can OD. Mm-hmm. So now you're mixing in a benzo with that, or alcohol with that, and it's not a good combination, man, because you can truly die under those circumstances. So I don't know if I'm quite answering your question.
No, you are.
But that's pretty much how it is, man.
It's one of the things I hear often. I know quite a few people. My father dealt with addiction. I had several relatives that I actually watched as a young person, impressionable young person, get high. Walked in, seeing my dad actually get high. It changed a lot personally in my life. Seeing that I never personally tried drugs. I never smoked a cigarette for them. We should call it square. But I'm happy to be a square because I was able to overcome my circumstances, not fall to peer pressure, despite the fact that I hung around a lot of people that did use drugs like smoke weed and such. One of the things that people constantly say is, well, why don't they just stop? Why don't you just stop? And I try to explain, coming from a person that never done drugs, that it's not that easy.
It's not that easy.
I had a friend, a really good friend, who was on heroin real bad at one point, to the point where when you looked at him, both arms were full of tracks like they were sleeves. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what they were at the time. And I remember asking him one day and feeling a little embarrassed asking him about it. He admitted that he used to be a real bad heroin addict and he shot up. And I said, well, how did you stop? How were you able to stop doing the heroin? And what he said to me was, and something I'll never forget, he said, God. Mm-hmm. And I paused, and there was a huge pause in that moment when he said God, and he said, you know, you as a person that never done heroin, you don't understand the effects of it and how hard it is to get off of this.
That's right. And
the honest to God answer I could give you to how I got off it was nothing but God. That's how difficult it is to kick that habit of heroin. You as a person that did it, what was it that gave you the power to want to kick this drug? What motivated you to kick the drug?
First of all, I knew if I had went back out in the street after getting those 15 straight dirty yarns I was talking, then there's a very good possibility, man, I could have probably been dead. You knowing that I had a heart attack.
Right. Yeah. You had a
some
heart
years
attack.
later.
Yeah.
But for me, I had to let. First of all, I went to Brandywine Counseling. I work for them now. I also was on the methadone program, which is a substitute for heroin, for opiates. It's a pain medication. You can use it for pain medications, for heart patients, for cancer patients. Methadone, will help with the pain. So I used methadone for 6 years, 5 years, because it's almost a year I've actually been off of it.
Right.
But for 5 years I used it, and I believe that first of all you have to truly be done getting high first of all in order for it to work. But I get it because I was just like so many people who would go get dosed every day but still use.
Right.
And I was far beyond that stabilization period that is given to you before they start handing down, how could I put it, write-ups, for instance. You get a certain amount of write-ups, you get kicked off the clinic.
Right.
So for me, I just chose to really give my recovery a chance. Was it easy? Certainly wasn't. But you have to change things like people, places, things, even the ones that you are close to. If they still using, you got to stay away from it. Of course, God, number one, played a very important role in my recovery, man. And before you know it, man, I was looking up, man, I was a year clean. Before you know it, I was 2 years clean. Before you know it, I was 3 years clean, until I got to my 5th year and I decided that I wanted to come down off of methadone. I know a lot of people who've tried it, but you got to be ready. And then you have to do it right. You can't come down 10 milligrams a day or 10 milligrams a month for a certain period of time. You got to come down really slow, like 2 milligrams a day for a year.
Right.
That's what worked for me. Now, I'm not saying some of that other stuff does not work, how people want to do it, but if you truly want to be successful in coming down off of methadone, you just got to do it slow.
Right.
And there are also a couple other things like Suboxone and Subutex. Vivitrol is another way you can go if you don't want to use the methadone to come down. But it saved my life, man.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
It saved my life, man.
How are you as a person now? Are you happier now that you're off drugs?
I'm extremely happy.
Are you able to appreciate things more? Just the daily, everyday things that sometimes get missed. I know from hearing people that do drugs, they feel like you're in a fog and you miss a lot. Do you feel like you're starting to see and just being able to feel a lot more now?
Yes, I can actually relate to that because you get clean, but all of that damage that was done before you got clean, man, you still got to go back and clean that up, man. That's just how life is.
Right.
Those things have to be cleaned up because they just don't. You can't sweep that to the side. Man.
Right.
You got people that you got to ask forgiveness.
Right.
Ask them to forgive you. It's family members, your children, your spouse.
Right.
Your mother.
Yeah.
So many people, man. Because I can tell you this, man. It's always somebody watching.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
A lot of times I didn't realize how much my kids actually watched what I was doing. Children aren't stupid, man. And a lot of people wonder why, these kids are like they are today, man. But nothing is impossible, man.
I agree.
Nothing is impossible.
How was it mending them broken bridges, them broken fences that you had with your family that through your addiction. How was that? Was that the most challenging thing you've done with your recovery? Was mending the broken relationships?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. It's hard. See, first of all, how recovery worked. Even if they did not forgive me right away, you can't let that affect you.
Right.
You know, you can't dwell on that. You know, you got to move on, man, because once you see some clarity in your life and see how much your life has changed since you stopped using, man, you become the most important person, man. You know, of course, I love my entire family, you know, but it's about me first.
Right. Right.
You know, it's about me first. Is I have to say this: it's God, it's me,
right?
It's my wife.
Absolutely.
You know, and those folks who don't want to forgive me for some of the things that I've done, that's on them, man.
I agree.
You know, I can't dwell on that, man. I got to keep pushing forward, and I got a whole lot of other things that I got to clean up instead of just, you know, just stand stuck on that, man.
Like with forgiveness, I think one of the hardest challenges, and this is a question and going to be formed into a question, but one of the hardest challenges is looking at people and forgiving yourself. Now, let me ask you this question: were you able to forgive yourself for
me a long time.
The mistakes you made?
Took me a long time. A long time. You know, a long time. I'm telling you, man, recovery is something because you begin to live right, but yet you still are sort of unsure of your abilities, man. And not just that, you know, you have people around you. You still have so many people in this world, man, in this country, that do not understand addiction and think that it's not an illness.
Right.
And it is. It's a disease just like any other disease that we have here.
Right.
But you still got so many people, including, you know, our government.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, who just do not know. And one of the main things that bothers me, and I really need to hit on this, is how this government, with the grants that, you know, are given, it's only about the women and children. Absolutely. You have so many intelligent men, white and black alike,
right?
You know, who are struggling with or who has struggled with addiction, and they only need a hand up. You know, and I'm not talking about being able to have Medicaid and go to the clinic. It goes further than that, man.
Right.
You know, if you do not feel good about yourself, how can you help somebody else?
That's true. Hurt people hurt people.
If you can't find a job,
right,
and you can't help yourself,
right,
how can you help somebody else?
That's true.
You know, and I think that here in Delaware, they need to start looking more into, and I'm not talking about no hand up, because that's not what it's about. It's about a second chance.
Right.
You know, and I don't care how many times a person has failed. You know, it's just too many young people, man, that are being devoured by this horrible disease.
Yeah, the funny thing is, before we doing this, while preparing for this interview, I did some research, and one of the most surprising things I found was that the age of 12, at the age of 12, average, there's a high average of people, young kids at the age of 12, first getting hooked on hard drugs. And I had no idea. I'm going to be honest, I had no idea at the age of 12, and it kind of scared me in a way because I couldn't imagine at the age of 12 someone, a 12-year-old, doing heroin or getting hooked on crack or cocaine or on pills, you know what I mean? But it's more common than we think that starting at the age of 12, the tender age of 12, kids are getting hooked on drugs. What do you think can be done to try to prevent that, if anything?
Now, I can say this, that it's always something. Now, I know I said I enjoy getting high, but it's always something that caused that down spiral.
Right.
You know, for things to begin to get out of control. You have young girls being raped and molested.
Right.
Forgive me. You have young boys being raped and molested.
Yeah.
You know, you have in some households parents getting high with their children.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so it's so many different things. You know, people being incarcerated and coming right back out to the same thing, to the same environment, and getting hooked all over again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so many things out here, man. It's a reason why people begin to do what they do. You know, once you start to get hooked on drugs, for some females and for some men now, they look towards prostitution.
Right.
You know, get first of all have a roof over their head, and to be able to get their money so that they can continue to get high.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's all of these things, man, that plays in how our young people are beginning to get out here and use drugs, man.
That's real, man. That's real. I think one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, and it's interesting that you mentioned that, you know, with abuse, sexual abuse in the home, and some of the abuse of a young person can feel at home can lead them to drugs. Once you become clean, those problems don't necessarily go away with the recovery of addiction. How would you suggest, or what do you think is a way that you can also heal from those wounds as well? You know,
we just had a program called Wish.
Mm-hmm.
These women, young and older women,
right,
supported each other
mm-hmm.
through this program and talked about a plethora of different things, you know, just the things that went on in their life.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I guess to answer your question, man, you know, if you need to go and have some psychiatric treatment, then you do just that.
Absolutely.
If you need to sit down with a psychiatrist, you do just that. In a lot of cases, man, that's exactly what it is, man. So just because you decide to get clean, you still got a whole lot of other baggage, man, that is there that you have to take care of.
Right.
So I guess when a person's in recovery, you know, the main important thing is taking care of yourself.
Right. Just
taking care of yourself. But there are support groups. You have NA, you have AA, you know, things like that. You know, and like I said, this government is pretty much for the women and children, so they got a lot going on for them.
And that seems to be the primary focus is women and children. Now, you once again, I know we already discussed this, and you probably just beating this to death that you are out there in the community. How often do you, just by your view, how more do you feel like it's more men that's out here addicted than there are women and children, or is it more women and children than men that's out here hooked on these drugs?
Statistically, I pretty much can't give you those statistics, but I think it's pretty much equal. I mean, I think you have more Caucasian. I can say this, that take advantage of the program that I'm a part of. More Caucasian than African American.
Why do you feel like more Caucasians do though? Why not? Why we're, and a lot of times, like I know a lot of these the trucks and the needle exchange programs and a lot of these programs are based in more poverty-stricken in black neighborhoods. So why is it that more Caucasians are actually taking advantage of these than African Americans who have it right outside their front door and in arm's reach? Why are they not taking advantage of this, in your opinion? Why do you think that?
Because African American people do not trust very easily. It is a process to come on to our vehicle, or I'm sure any program similar to the one I'm a part of. It's a process. There's some things that you have to do to be a part of that program. You have to take an HIV test.
Right.
In some instances, you should have some syringes to exchange.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we offer the Hep C test. It's an intake process, first of all. And then we want to be able to provide them with Narcan, a drug that reverses the effect of an overdose. And just a lot of African Americans do not trust in that situation, nor do they have the patience to just come in for 20 minutes or less. You know, get tested.
Gotcha. Let's segue off of the drugs for 1 second. Let's talk about what you just hit on, and that's Black African American or African Americans actually trusting in these type of programs or even trusting in the government. We seeing more of this. Let's go outside the black shootings. You just see more of it that African Americans just don't trust the government and don't trust a lot of things. And I heard a statement recently that people feel like this country is being split in half, and Barack Obama, our president, Barack Obama, don't feel this way. I personally disagree with our president. I apologize, but I disagree with him that I do feel like this country is being split in half. And I agree with you that African Americans don't trust the government as much or trust in these type of these opportunities. What do you feel could be done to improve the relationship and the trust in African Americans in programs and in the government as a whole?
Well, first of all, they've taken away a lot of stuff from. They've taken a lot of money. They don't give out the money like they used to, man, in our cities to help with, for instance, summer youth jobs,
right?
Recreation, you know, things of that nature, man. They've actually taken, or they don't give the money that they used to. When I was a kid, we had so much going on, you know, that we couldn't. You know, we didn't care about what the older kids were doing,
right?
Because we were busy, and they don't have that now. Now, I think one of the problems is that you have these young people having kids. You got young grandmothers.
Yes.
You know, that sort of thing. You know, you got grandmothers 29, 30 years old. You know, and they grandmothers.
Right.
You know,
there's no elders anymore.
There's no elders.
Right.
Anymore.
I agree.
And so they. You don't have that strong figure in the communities now, man, that just exudes experience, man. Someone that you can learn from. You don't have that too much. What you have is, to me, is a lot of fly-by-night crap.
You know? Stick it to a wall, throw it to a wall, hope it sticks.
Yeah. And that just don't work. And, it doesn't work. I don't know. And at this moment, I can't really think of a way that, other than education, man,
absolutely, educating
yourself could stop a lot of the things that are happening in our communities today.
Yes, I agree.
We're just not educated enough.
And it's funny that you say that. I was speaking to someone. I was like, you know, we have Google with YouTube and with all these, with the internet base, it's not back when I was growing up where you had to go to the library, you had to read through all these books to get everything.
Right.
Everything's at the touch of your fingertips. And when you talk about we're not, well, not you, when people talk about we're not cultured and we don't know about our history and stuff, our history is right there with just one click of a button. You can learn your history. You can learn, go way beyond what's being taught to you and find out things and read books and even listen to books if you don't want. It just interests me that and just to highlight what you're saying about education. Education is so important. And growing up in a poverty-stricken neighborhood, you don't see the advantages of education too much. At least me personally, I had dropped out of high school at 16. I went back at 23 to get my GED as well for trade in business. And I'm about to graduate from Wilmington University with a degree in communications and marketing. But before I decided to do that, I didn't understand or even think that education was important. Looking at my environment, I didn't see much successful people, and I didn't see any opportunity for me to actually grow somewhere that would give me success. Sorry, you want to speak?
Because I got to disagree with you on something.
Okay, go ahead.
You had a real good example right in front of you, man.
Okay.
Got up every day, went to work, worked all kind of hours and everything.
Absolutely.
That was your motivation right there.
Absolutely. And that's
what
that's what actually kept me kept my head on straight. And I remember I went for a job interview, and the question I asked, it was at Babies R Us, and they asked me a question. They said, who is your idol? Who do you look up to? And I said, my mom. And the answer back was, they were like, I'm shocked. Most people say Michael Jordan or, Muhammad Ali or some great athlete. And my response was, I don't know Michael Jordan. I see him on TV. I don't know Michael Jordan. I never met him, never shook his hand. I don't know. All I know is I see him flying through the air on a basketball court. I don't know Muhammad Ali. I watch his fights on the internet, but I don't know Muhammad Ali. I know my mom. And as you said, my mom was a hard-working woman, single mother. We lived in the projects for a few years. She single-handedly got us out of the projects. My mom single-handedly purchased her first home. She was an amazing example of with strength and with ambition to give you, and actually gave me the tools to succeed in life and not get caught in the streets. And one of them was giving me a longer leash and saying, look, I'm not going to hide the realities of the world to you. Rather, I'm going to let you experience them, and I'm going to explain to you exactly what happens when you choose these paths. You understand? Like, you can choose these paths, but here's what's going to happen at the end. And you must decide yourself on whether you want to fall in that hole or not, or do you want to go down this tunnel. But my mom was, I have to say, my mom was an excellent role model for me, and I'm sorry for the people who out there who idolize LeBron James and Kobe Bryant. I would recommend anybody to idolize someone you actually know, that you can reach out and touch, and someone you can talk to, because I always said I don't want to meet my idols as far as in entertainment, because the idols can sometimes disappoint you. And when you know somebody personally, you're less likely to be disappointed in them, because you're not going to get just one impression of them. You can get many impressions. You can see them in many different forms. And that's the importance of idolizing somebody close to you. So thank you for actually mentioning that. And that's very true in motivation. I also have to point out my wife and son as being motivation that actually driven me to want to be more successful. And
absolutely,
I feel like in life, and when you're dealing with addiction or any aspect of life, you must find someone to give you that light to push you and move you forward, to give you that ambition and that motivation to move you forward. And just know that even though that failures may come, ultimately failures can also lead to success, and there are lessons that teach you what success is. You
got to care about something nowadays, man.
Absolutely, and that's one of the problems with young people nowadays. Like we spoke earlier about elders and no elders in the neighborhood. I had a grandmother, amazing grandfather, and my grandfather is, I always say, he's a man that I could live 30 years, 100 years, in 2 or 3 lifetimes, and I'll never equal up to the man he is. And why I say that is because that's the profound respect I have for that man, and seeing his work ethic and seeing how he took care of his family and how he carried himself as a man. And I say that just to show how much I respect him. But when I look at people now, and touch on this, as once again you dealing in these poverty-stricken situations, we don't see elders anymore. We don't see the elders in the neighborhood that tells the kids to get off that corner, to stop doing that. The elders that teach us about finances, teach us about who we are, our history, where we came from, where we can go, and where we're going to go. Do you feel like that's missing in the world?
First of all, what's missing is black teachers.
Interesting. Why do you say black teachers?
Because when I grew up, man, I still know poems, man, that was taught to me when I was in the 5th grade. I had an amazing teacher, man. All of my teachers when I was in was in elementary school was just simply amazing, man. You wanted to learn from these guys,
right?
And now, because you got so many kids going to school hungry and misunderstood, it's kind of hard, man, to pay attention when you got an empty stomach.
That's
when
true.
you're hungry.
It's
really hard to pay attention to anybody under those circumstances, man. So I think with a lot of the white teachers, man, they're young, first of all.
Right.
No experience. They get put into a situation with dealing with high school kids, and they don't know how to handle it. So that first thing they want to do is put them out.
Right.
Now you can look at that. You can flip the script and look at it in their, in their eyes. It's hard to teach some of these children nowadays, Then you got to worry about it's a possibility that they might jump on you.
That's true.
So, it's a couple different ways that you can really, really look at that. Teachers just have a hard job, and each and every one of them really needs to be respected, man.
Absolutely.
That's a hard job to have.
Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility too.
Yes,
because basically you're putting your kids' lives in these people's hands, and they got to carry responsibility of what they teach a child could be the difference of them living a prosperous, successful life to being complete failures. But do you think the issue with having white teachers with black students is the issue with being able to relate to black people, and especially when you have a teacher coming from the suburbs who never experienced the inner city or the hood, that comes down that you got to deal with these kids from the hood, and they don't understand each other's culture, if you want to put it that way. They don't understand the difference in culture with people, because I feel like that's a big issue, is not understanding each other's culture.
I might have kind of like overstepped my bounds with something that I said, because I was in that busing era, and I didn't have a problem, man. I think one of the problems is that people just do not want to follow directions. Was I the greatest student? No, I was not, man. I fought a lot when I was in high school. I was always fighting. But the one thing that they will tell you is that I had a spirit, man. Right. I knew how to ask for forgiveness, man. I knew how to say that I was sorry for something that I done, man. And they recognized that, man. And nowadays you just have children that are just filled with so much anger. Just so much anger, man. And I guess I have to say a lot of it starts at home, man.
Absolutely.
A lot of it.
That's why I asked you about your father. I mean, I know me personally, speaking from a personal perspective, I had a lot of anger in school, and I fought a lot in school. And when I talk to people and they ask, why did you fight a lot in school, and why were you so angry, I was like, my dad wasn't around. Right. And he, like I said, my father dealt with drug addiction. My father lost his brother a day before he was supposed to be released from prison. He was killed. The day before he was supposed to be released, it hit my father hard. As a young kid, I didn't understand that. I didn't know my uncle. I didn't understand the relationship they had. My grandfather on my father's side, he was killed by, what I'm told, a cousin or something of that sort at a young age as well. This greatly affected my father in a way where it became this thing in my family that I even hear about now, that all the young men die in my family. It's a curse in my family that young men die. So originally my dad was dealing with the fact of losing his father young, to losing his brother that he was so close to, and dealing with the fact that he's believing that he's going to die young. And the pressure became too much that he couldn't handle it. And he started getting on drugs. And what I do remember about my father is, I would not say and say like, oh my God, he was a deadbeat dad. He was an amazing man. And I do remember great times with my father. I remember my father, hard-working man, very smart, very intelligent man. And I remember times where he took me to, he had a beautiful house with brass, everything. And I was like, boy, it's like a castle in here. And he was just an amazing father. But like many people, you get caught into this lifestyle of drugs, and it alters everything, including your mind state, where he couldn't be that great father he was and be that presence in my life. And what happened was, I'm going to school and I'm angry and I'm mad at everybody. I'm mad at people who had nothing to do with my father. People who had nothing to do with me losing my uncle or anything, or didn't sell him the drugs. They had nothing to do with anything that was affecting me. But it's like anything in life, you have to find a way to let it out. And my way of letting it out was fighting and stuff and going to school angry. So when I see kids going to school angry, I know I look at them and say, you gotta look at their family. You gotta look at not having a father. As a man, we need that presence in a man to teach us how to be men. And that's something that's lacking. And my next question is to ask you about the rap artists and men wearing dresses and leggings and tight pants and that sort of thing. How do you feel about that, and where do you think that's coming from?
First of all, I don't like it. Just like you see these young men walking around with their pants hanging down, and they really don't understand where that come from. That whole thing comes from prison.
Right.
If you look at some of our black theologians, man, and some of the things that they spoke on, for instance, on how they have And I'm just saying you see a lot of it now. You see a lot of young African American men uh, uh, that are, should I say, gay,
Mm-hmm.
be politically correct,
Right.
and it's just more acceptable. But those same theologians were talking about that per se. That's what's going to happen. I don't get it, man. I mean, I can't quite put my finger on it.
I agree. The skirts and stuff is a little much for me. I'm sorry. I can't wear tight pants, and I don't want to wear my wife's leggings. I'm sorry. I just can't do it. I remember walking through the mall with my wife, and a man was walking down, a guy was walking down the other end of the mall, and I'm like, he has the same leggings you have on right now. Like, he has the same exact pants as my wife on. And, you see pictures of it, but to see in reality, it just had a head-scratching moment. Like, I don't get it. Like, but I feel like demasculation is in high demand. And I'm quoting Dr. Boyce Watkins. He also has a podcast as well, where he said he talked about a male, his friend, having a job, and his job was so demanding on him, and he felt so demasculated that he couldn't have sex with his wife. He really couldn't get in the mood to have sex with his wife. He was depressed all the time. He was angry all the time because he felt so demasculated at work that when he came home, he didn't feel like a man anymore. And it wasn't until he actually lost his job through a layoffs is that he once again became a man. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like we are being demasculated? Do you think it's a race thing, or do you think it's just a thing where men in general are being demasculated?
It's funny. I never felt demasculated.
Okay.
But I can relate to some of that because when I worked at the refinery, my wife could tell you about this. It was times when I literally called her crying because I wanted to hurt somebody on my job, man. Because I had to deal with racism every day, every day up there, man. And you were doing the same thing that your white counterpart was doing. The same job, maybe even better.
Right.
But every day I had to deal with that. There were times because we had the one car where my relief would come in late, purposely, just to see me upset and things of that nature. But what was happening is it was making my wife late.
Right.
And they didn't care. Now, you flip that, then you're sitting in human resources, if you was to do that to them. So I do understand, man, that sometimes you can feel demasculated when you're dealing with some white men, man. Absolutely. And I really had to rise above some things, man, so I would not hurt one of them. And there were many a days I wanted to, but eventually, my drug addiction. I pretty much fed my drug addiction around that time too, because of that.
Right.
That was one of the reasons why. I'm almost certain of that. But if that answers your question.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Like drug addiction, do you feel like drug addiction and drug addiction and emotional state of minds and issues through your emotional state and your mental state, do you think they come hand in hand? Like drugs kind of feed or try to cover up a lot of things you're dealing with emotionally as well as mentally, and you think vice versa? Like it's like they're in a marriage together where they kind of either drive it.
First of all, drugs itself, whether it's cocaine, heroin, marijuana, any one of these drugs, pills, is no different than alcohol.
Absolutely.
It's no different than some of these white CEOs who every day through the week go and meet their counterparts there and drink and then go home in a stupor. Or for anybody, a drug is a drug. I do believe that a lot of us do that to forget some of the things that happens in our life, but when reality kicks in, man, those problems are still there.
Absolutely. You wake up from that fog,
they're still there, man. You still have those issues to deal with.
Do you think that marijuana should be legalized, or how do you feel about marijuana being legalized across the country? Considering the fact that it's a drug, do you feel like marijuana should be legalized for all? And
Well, first of all, there was a time when I loved marijuana.
okay.
You know, there was a time when I loved marijuana,
Mhm.
man, and I stopped smoking marijuana because it made me paranoid.
Right.
I'm telling you. First of all, I got these big eyes. And can you imagine these big eyes, bloodshot red? Ain't no hiding it.
Right.
You can't hide it. You know, and I didn't want to be around people.
Mhm.
You know, under the influence of marijuana.
Right.
You know? So I moved on.
Right.
You know, I wasn't never really a drinker, but I moved on.
Mhm.
So to answer your question, man, hey, man, you know, people do what they do, man. You
Right.
got alcohol legalized.
That's true. Do you think marijuana is like too hard of a drug where, people can get addicted to it and it can cause major concerns? Because you always hear people say, well, I don't want my pilot smoking marijuana, but it's okay for your pilot to drink. I mean, it's kind of the same.
Yeah.
Impaired is being impaired.
Yeah.
You're drunk. You
It's like calling the pot.
exactly. It's calling pot the kettle black.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Somebody I didn't understand that whole argument where you don't want your pilot high off marijuana. I don't want him drunk off liquor either. But hey, to each his own. You want to drink, drink.
I guess, man. For me, first of all, I can't use drugs. Period.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because of my past.
Mhm.
You know. But I can say this. What a person does after he is home from work should not be used against them.
Absolutely.
As long as you don't bring that into your professional life,
Absolutely.
as far as your work,
Mhm.
you go home and you have a drink. You go home and you smoke a joint or a bowl or whatever.
Right.
You know what I mean? Okay. Don't smoke a bowl before you go to work.
Absolutely. I agree.
Don't have a drink before you go to work.
Absolutely.
You know. But for me, myself, man, I'm drug free, man.
I agree.
I'm drug free, man.
And that's a true blessing. And the point of having you here is that you're drug free and that you're an extraordinary person for it, and having the strength to overcome that, man. Just sit here and walk and stand so tall with it. And I want to thank you personally for sharing this amazing, amazing story and being so open and honest with you. And we're going to let you go, but before we let you go, got a few more questions on some current events. I got to ask you,
Okay.
what do you think about the Kevin Durant signing with the Golden State Warriors leaving Oklahoma City? What is your opinion? Let's go.
Well, first of all, I can't understand how you could be buddies and all of a sudden you was just down 3. You was just up 3-1
Yeah.
against the same team.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's horrible, man.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's horrible. I think it's even more horrible than how LeBron left Cleveland.
Mm.
I'm sorry. My opinion.
Nah, it's okay. It's okay. Go ahead for it.
I don't understand how you can have a team the way that the old school basketball players be like this. We got a good nucleus here. We have a great team here. We was one step away
Mm-hmm.
from being in the finals ourselves.
Absolutely.
And why would he do that?
Absolutely.
I think that he's not going to be the same player. First of all, you got to play in a whole different system.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's not going to get the shots that he wants. I just don't think I think his legacy is done.
Mm. All right, I'm gonna give you my opinion on it. First of all, I want to agree with you. I couldn't picture, and you know this better than I do because I was like young, very young when this happened. But Michael Jordan going against the Detroit Pistons, and like I know, Detroit they was bothering Mike in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They was beating the heck out of him, like physically and mentally and on the court. But I couldn't picture Mike losing to Detroit after coming close to beating them and leaving Chicago to go and play with Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, Kurt Rambis, and Bill Laimbeer and all them guys, Rick Mahorn. I can't picture him going and play with that team. You know what I mean? It just wouldn't make sense. And what Mike did was, it showed in the documentary, was he hit the gym. He hit the gym, weight room, and he used that as motivation to come back and to beat Detroit. And eventually he beat Detroit, won 6 titles in Chicago. He didn't have to leave to go somewhere else. But then you look at it and you play devil's advocate and you look at a Reggie Miller who stayed his whole career in Indiana, and when had the opportunity to leave Indiana, he chose to stay, had his house burned down with all his memorabilia, childhood trophies and stuff all lost, never won a championship, never really got to that title, never won that title. And had he
They was
left,
in it every year, though.
they were in it every year, but
They
never
were in it every year. It's not like they had a bad team. They had a great team.
but they never got to that over that. He's never going to have NBA champion.
You can say that about Charles Barkley.
And that was my next point. Charles Barkley with the 76ers.
Karl Malone.
Karl Malone with Utah Jazz. However, he did go to the Lakers to try to chase that championship late in his career.
You're too old.
As Charles Barkley did with the Houston Rockets, going with Clyde Drexler and Olajuwon. But at that point, it was a little too late to make that decision. But what I'm saying is there has been people in history have done it later in their career, but none in their prime. But what I also looked at and I said with Kevin Durant was comparing to what the LeBron James thing is, Kevin Durant's not a player of LeBron James' caliber. And what I mean by that is LeBron James left Cleveland. They were a lottery team immediately. As soon as he left, they're a lottery team. Mm-hmm. He goes to Miami. Miami's in the championship 3-4 straight years in a row. He leaves Miami. Miami's back like they just dropped right back down. Cleveland's contenders again. All right, sorry about that, yo. We had a quick, we had a little interruption, a little break right here. But what I was saying was, to take off my point was, when LeBron when he came back to Cleveland, they won the championship. And what I'm basically saying is LeBron was a type of player who was a franchise changer. He changed franchises. When I look at Kevin Durant, I say, you know what? He's a player of a missing piece. He's a Paul Pierce type player. He's a Ray Allen type of player where, not saying he's not a superstar, I'm not saying he's not a great player, but he's not a Michael Jordan. He's not a LeBron James, a Magic Johnson. Those guys you're going to look at the end of a Kobe Bryant, exactly, Kobe Bryant, where at the end of their career, you're going to look at them, and despite the choices they made, you're going to say, these were the greatest players ever to play this game. Kevin Durant is a great player. He's a great scorer, but he's not going to meet that. He's not going to be, even if he stayed at Oklahoma City, he was never going to be in that conversation with the LeBrons. As much as people like to say, oh, yeah, he will, I don't think he will ever be in that conversation with the LeBrons, the Michael Jordans of the world.
Well, I still think if he had stayed with Oklahoma City, that they were still going to be contenders. They were going to still be there and possibly one of those teams to go on and win the NBA Finals next year. But I just don't understand. I think he let too many people get in his head about his counterpart.
Russell Westbrook, right?
Yes. I think who is a hell of a player in his own right.
Yeah.
A great player.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this upcoming season, man, you're going to see just how great Russell Westbrook really is, man.
Hey, he's an amazing guy, man, superstar. But like I say, he's on the equivalent. He's more of a Kobe Bryant type player. Allen Iverson, that guy with that killer instinct.
Yes, indeed.
And can take over a game. But we're gonna see what they're gonna do this year, and see what Golden State gonna do, and if they can win a championship. And if they can't pull out a championship, and LeBron beats Golden State in the finals this year, well, I gotta say, it looks like LeBron's stock may reach that peak where you guys start discussing him a little closer with Michael Jordan and Kevin Durant. I think it's going to look at him like, maybe you're just not as good as we thought you were. But I guess we can end this off with this. Okay, I need your top 5. Okay, I need your top 5 in sports in general. You can pick top 5 figures in sports and overall that you would say is your top 5 and your top favorite players of all time in any sport. Don't have to be basketball, football, hockey, baseball.
Well,
what is your top 5?
I'm going to go with basketball.
All right, let's go.
My favorite player is Charles Barkley.
All right, mine too.
I got to go with Chuck to be 6'4", not even 6'5", and dominate the game the way that he has, the way that he did. Just awesome dude.
Right.
My number 2 pick, I'm gonna go with Kobe.
Ooh, good one.
Something about that Mamba, man.
Yeah, bad boy, man. You gotta love the hate.
Oh my gosh, man. something about that Mamba, man. I'm gonna go with him. Man, this is tough,
man. This is
a
tough question. Yeah, I know.
This is tough.
I say the toughest question for last.
I'm gonna go with Mike.
Ooh, good one. That's a good one. Mike's number 3, right?
Mike's number 3.
Mike's
I'm gonna
number
go with Bill Russell.
11 championships.
Oscar Robertson.
Ooh, Oscar Robertson. Why Oscar Robertson? You could pick Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson. There's an endless Dr. J. Why Oscar Robertson is number 5?
Well, Oscar Robertson, man. I mean, now I know I got pretty much three guards there.
Right.
You know, and you're right. I should have probably picked another player, but
nah, that's good.
Oscar Robertson, man. Everybody talks about the stats that Michael and a lot of these guys are putting up, man.
Mm-hmm.
But before 3-point shooting were even collected or whatever, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Oscar was doing it then, man. Triple doubles every night.
Right.
And I'm talking about from college into the pros.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this guy was doing that. So played for Cincinnati. You know, just an amazing player. Man. Right. You know, so the Big O, man.
Hey,
the Big O.
Triple doubles, man. He was the one triple doubles before LeBron was doing it. Yeah, people forget Oscar Robertson was hitting them triple doubles way before LeBron. And, you know, with the Michael Jordans and Dr. J's of the world, we kind of forget that Oscar Robertson was the man at one point.
Oh, absolutely. Man.
Yeah, man, we got to know our history. Like you said before, know your history. Get on that Google button and Google Oscar Robertson, see what he did. Check them stats. You
That's
know
right.
What I mean? You'll see.
That's right.
Hey, man, it ain't always about LeBron James and Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. There were some greatness and great players way before them.
So who are yours?
Oh, my top 5 players of all time? Good question, man. I gotta say, number 1, Charles Barkley, Dr. J. I'm not a huge Michael Jordan fan per se, I guess because everybody bandwagon him, but I can't argue with greatness. So number 3, I have to agree with you with Michael Jordan. Number 4, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I loved Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the man who created the greatest shot in the history of basketball.
Nobody ever be able to duplicate that shot.
Never. And I don't know if I said his name already, but I'm going to say it again, Magic Johnson, who I think is arguably the greatest player of all times.
You're not going to get an argument out of me.
All time. And if you don't think so, you disagree with me, look him up. Once again, research Magic. Magic
6'8", 6'9".
Played 5 different positions his rookie season to win the NBA championship when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was out. He's a bad man. And he did it in Michigan State in college. I mean, hey, argue with me once. You know, I know there's a lot of Michael Jordan fans, and Magic was a bad man.
Well, you know who else said that too, man? Probably, one of the greatest players in the game too. Larry Bird said that Magic Johnson was simply amazing.
He was amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah, he was amazing. Gave Larry Bird countless sleepless nights. I tell you that, whether it was in the NCAA, Indiana versus Michigan State, or whether it was in the NBA where it was Boston Celtics versus the LA Lakers. Oh, they had some battles.
They were made for each other.
Absolutely. Man. It was a relationship that you can't duplicate, man. So when you talk about sports and stuff, and once again, the subject of this podcast today is educating yourself, whether it's on drug addiction or whether it's on sports or just in general, whether it's race. Educate yourself. Get on that Google button. Look up Magic Johnson. Look up Larry Bird. Look at that relationship. Before it was Jordan versus Bird, it was Magic versus Bird. Both men in their primes, and it went way beyond on the court. It was off the court as well. You know, they did a commercial together. I remember watching a documentary where they did not like each other off the court until one day, you know, they were doing a commercial together, and they were at Magic's home. His mother cooked for him, and they sat down at a table together and had a conversation. And that's when
it was actually at Bird's house.
Yeah, okay, sorry, it was Bird's house. Let me stand corrected.
It was actually
Bird's
at
house. Bird's house, and they had
in
a conversation.
Indiana.
Yes, they had a conversation, and that's when they became more than just competitors, but friends. And sometimes that's just simply what we need in this world. It's just a simple conversation can resolve a lot of issues, whether we're talking about drug addiction, whether we're talking about police violence, or we're talking about poverty. Sometimes things just come down to simply as what we're doing today, having a conversation with somebody and finding out what's going on in their life, and understanding and appreciation for the greatness and extraordinary person that might be sitting across from you. I want to thank you again, Mr. Andre Vider, for joining me today with the first, and I mean the first, Ordinary People's Podcast, where we talk to ordinary people with extraordinary stories. Before we leave today, is there anything you want to leave the people with?
I just want to say, man, thank you, first of all, for having me. I think I want to leave folks with this, man. Love one another.
Absolutely.
Just love one another. It's so important, man. Respect the differences that we may have, man. You know, it's just that simple, man. You know, instead of disliking somebody because they're different than you are, you know, just love them, man. That's it.
Absolutely, man. I agree with you 100%, man. I'm gonna leave you guys with this. You know, life is too short, so love, live, and be happy. You know, love the people who are close to you. Love the people you don't know. Learn if you don't like them or if you don't understand them. Take the time to actually educate yourself, talk to them, and figure out the differences. Appreciate that God made us all different for a reason. We all are extraordinary people within ourselves, and we're all put here with a greater purpose. So learn your light. Let everybody see your light shine bright like a diamond, as Rihanna says, and continue to be extraordinary. And once again, I want to thank Andre Ryder for joining us here for the first, and I mean first episode of Ordinary People Podcast. This is Alan the Great, and I'm telling y'all this: you can't reach success without failure. So don't fear to fail, or don't be fearful of failure. And remember, failure is a fear that doesn't exist. Be successful, be strong, be educated, and thank you again for joining us. I'm out. Peace.
Out.